Hello everyone, and I am here for another discussion video inspired by some mysteries that I have recently read. So I have, the discussion topic for today is, should character values that differ from your own kind of ruin a book for you? And the two books that have inspired this thought is The Deeds of the Disturber by Elizabeth Peters, and this is the fifth in the beloved Amelia Peabody series. And then the second book is A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn, and this was very kindly sent to me by Penguin, so thank you very much. And I'll address first The Deeds of the Disturber. So in case you aren't aware of this series, this is about Amelia Peabody, who is an Egyptologist in the Victorian era, with her husband Emerson. And in this one, though, they are back in England, and they have I think he's 6, and the 6-year-old son Ramses, and so you get to see them as a family, kind of not in the usual dynamic that you see them. So my friend Kate from the novel Nomad and I buddy read this, and I just thought it was really neat to see them back home in their native land. But one thing that I found interesting about this book is you really do get to see Amelia's perspectives, her values in this. She is considered a feminist in the day. She thinks that women can do a lot more than the society of the day did think. And I think it's really interesting to see that, you know, a feminist in the Victorian era. But she does have some kind of like nationalist and colonialist views. And you see this when she talks about women wearing corsets in England, how she thinks that shouldn't happen, but how she's really glad at least they don't do the widow burning that they do in India, and basically just implying that English values are superior. And so I was really perplexed when I saw on Goodreads someone had been really offended by that and put that they were done with the Amelia Peabody series and this is written in the 21st century. They don't have time for that kind of thing. And I just was really perplexed because this is historical fiction. I think sometimes in this politically correct day and era, people my age, you know, millennials, expect characters in books from previous eras to be kind of time travelers, like people with 21st century values who just happen to be in this historical setting. And I would argue that it kind of makes it less accurate. If they're going to be so set in 21st century values, it makes them a less historically accurate character, if that makes sense. And ironically, many of these people who, you know, talk about how they want diversity, you know, some of these same people who are offended by this talk about how they want diversity, but I think they kind of want diversity in everything but intellect. So anything that is not considered, you know, a politically correct opinion of the day, they just have no time to give to characters who don't have the values that they have. And I just find that really interesting. And so I would argue that it makes it less historically accurate and appropriate if the character has all of the values of today and not anything that people would have in that day. Amelia is very typical for that day, and I think that's really appropriate, and it would be odd. She wouldn't fit in even more so in that time. She already sticks out. So I think it makes sense. You know, we all have areas that we might disagree with society on, and so she is already a feminist. That already makes her stick out. And so I think it would be kind of phenomenal if she agreed with all of the same things that we agree with today. So in this novel, you see Amelia and Emerson, like I said, they're back in England. There's a murder of a museum guard, and then Amelia thinks that there might be more to it than meets the eye. And then in addition to that, she's also keeping her brother's 2 children, his son and his daughter, and there's kind of drama that happens with that. But what I really liked in this, as always, was Amelia and Emerson's relationship, and you get to see them really just growing together as a couple and growing as individuals, and it's just such a sweet relationship that they have, and they really do challenge each other, and I think that's really spectacular to see. And this one is my favorite thus far. Just seeing them back home and kind of having a more everyday life than they do in Egypt, where Egypt is just like things are constantly happening. But this was a bit slower paced, so I switched to the audiobook of this, and I found that it was kind of easier because it is written in somewhat of a Victorian style, and I thought that was really fun then to listen to the audiobook. It kind of helped me pace along. But I really enjoyed this, and so I do recommend the Amelia Peabody series. I would say that they do start to feel a little bit similar, like books 2 through 4 started to feel kind of similar. So I would say just take your time with it. And then, you know, I think Kate and I took like a 6-month break from Amelia Peabody, and so we were really looking forward to getting back to this one. So I'm now like re-excited about this series as a whole, and I can't wait to get to number 6. The other book I wanted to discuss is A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. This is the first in the Veronica Speedwell series, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I think there are some things in here that I didn't agree with the character on. I didn't agree with her values on, but I think it's kind of a shame to toss out a whole series just because there are certain things that you disagree with a character on. This is about Veronica Speedwell, and she has been raised by her two elderly aunts, and upon their passing away, all of a sudden this man named the Baron shows up at her house and says, "Your life is in danger, you need to come with me right now, and you just have to trust me." And so she decides to trust him. And then he drops her off at his friend's house, who his last name is Stoker. I can't remember his first name. But anyhow, he drops her off at his house and he says, "I'll be back in a couple days as soon as I can. I have to take care of some things." And then a couple days later, his body turns up. So he has clearly been murdered. So then Veronica and Stoker team up to investigate what happened with this guy. But this is set in Victorian England. So of course it is scandalous that she is staying with a man on her own. But she is a very cosmopolitan woman. She has traveled the world, and she is I don't know how to say it. I'm going to put the word down below. Someone who studies butterflies, and she loves butterflies, and she's just so intelligent and witty and sharp. And what I really loved about this, it was so fast-paced. It just kept moving, moving, moving. I was on the edge of my seat. At one point in the story, they end up hanging out with a group of circus people, and then they come back to London to investigate things, and it was just so fun. It was so fun. It had such a fun dynamic to it. So I am really, really excited to read the next one, which Penguin was so kind to send to me as well. So I will be getting to that very shortly. And I think that the third one I've heard is going to be set in Egypt. So I'm just really thrilled to bits about this series. And there was lots of character development in this. You really got to know Veronica and Stoker, the man who she was with, really well. And then it's really neat the way at the end it's set up. There are cool things in store for these characters, and you're really going to get to know them more. The part of this novel that I didn't like, one, there was a lot of talk about sex, and it was sex in the really the branch of feminism that is really free love. You are a feminist if you believe in free love, and it was really preachy about it. It just felt a little bit preachy, kind of like bashing it over your head, because she just kept talking about it. She just kept talking about it, and I just thought it was a little bit contrived. But the other part that I found, I found offensive about this, one of her viewpoints, there's a quote, "There's a woman who's running a household, and she is running a household very well. It's extremely organized, it's clean, it is just a calm household." And I think that's something that people, like I said in a recent video, you don't notice that unless it's not there. People often take it for granted. And so she says about this character, "I thought of her then, her brilliant mathematician's mind wasted upon grocer's bills and linen counts." So I totally get, if you want to be a feminist, that's great. Women can do, so much, and women are amazing and awesome. But that branch of feminism where you totally write off women for deciding to be stay-at-home moms really bothers me. And I just think it's really offensive. Why can't a woman stay at home and rock being a stay-at-home mom? Why can't she give her kids the best possible childhood that she should? Not that working moms can't do that, but why can't that in their household? This is what works for their family. She wants to stay home. She wants to bake them things. She wants to teach them things. She wants them to be constantly learning and give them creative activities. I just think that, why can't women be awesome at doing that? So that really bothered me. But all to say, I'm not going to write off this book completely. I think you're really missing out in literature if there's a character who has different viewpoints than you and you're just going to be offended and write off the book altogether. That just doesn't make sense to me, because otherwise the pacing of the plot, the character development, the writing, the creativeness of everything that happens in this, it's just too fun for me to pass up this series altogether. So I have that little caveat. Well, here is a little, part of the book that I didn't really appreciate, but I enjoyed so much else of the book. And I just think that so many books are a mixed bag. There's going to be elements about books that you don't like Olive over at A Book Olive just recently did a video on books I'm still not sure how I feel about. And so I think we're kind of cheating ourselves when we say that we can either like or dislike a book. So I disliked that viewpoint that she had. We're saying that, you know, you're wasting your talent as a stay-at-home mom. But I loved so much else about it. So overall, this book was a very positive experience, and I'm not going to let you know, those beliefs ruin my experience of this. And I also was discussing this with Kate from the novel Nomad, and I was wondering maybe possibly her views will evolve in the books. So if they do evolve, it will be really cool to see her realize that women's talents can still be used as stay-at-home moms, and I'll be excited to see that. And so if it did happen, I would hate to miss out on it by writing off the series altogether. So I will report back my findings on the second book, because I will most definitely be getting to it because I want to know what happens. And then it's really neat to see if Deanna Rayborn, she's already, like I said, the next one's going to be set in Egypt. She's researching that. And so I can't wait to see what she's going to come out with next. I hope my ideas conveyed to you guys. I hope you're able to kind of get a picture of what I was trying to communicate. Please let me know if a character's values just were so detestable to you that it ruined a book for you, or if you had my experience where they kind of irked you, but you were able to still enjoy the overall book overall. And I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I will see you for a video very soon.